politicians keep politicking before you turn to excessive drinking. Spend some time collectively politinkering with the show where I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
'Cause the truth is, I don't know, man.
That's a lie.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
I don't know,
man.
Hello, all my Politinkerites.
I guess that works.
Welcome back to Politinkering. This is your host, Sean Nasty. I am, as always, joined by the reasonable gentleman of Politinkering, Mr. Joseph, my Bonnie lies over the ocean, and Mr. Sean, oh my God, Brian. How are you gentlemen today?
Great. I'm well.
Yay.
I'm quite well, sir.
All right.
I see you've adapted the Sean Nasty moniker.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's up with that? You're so much more formal.
Honestly, I think it's just because I edit them so much that I hear people, or Wheeler specifically, calling me
I'm
Sean
not going
Nasty
to call
so
you
much.
Sean Nasty.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to. I was purposely trying not to say it, but for some reason, Sean Nasty came out and said,
Listener,
Sean
just
Fa.
Forget that he said that.
Yeah, this
He's
is your
not,
host,
this is
Sean
Sean.
Fa.
Or I can introduce you. Do it that way. How does that work? I guess we're all co-hosts.
Doesn't
really matter.
I hit the button. It's,
Fair enough. And then we talk. We converse.
Indeed.
However, you are the one asking the question, as always.
Yeah.
And we fucking never know. So, I don't know. We should probably start. I don't know if we should know beforehand. We'll figure it out. I don't know, man.
Yeah, thinking about stuff is
So you got the
stuff.
but
yeah, so let's just dive right in. Today's topic du jour. Yeah.
DU space JOUR.
I'll have the soup of the day.
Check out the brain on Brad. Anyways,
Big brain on Brad.
today's topic is, what are we going to do about crime?
Oh, okay. What are we going to do about crime?
Crime, yeah. So, prisons and whatnot,
Okay.
crime and punishment. How are we going to handle that? What should we do? What is a crime? How should we handle that once there is a crime? Should we be trying to fix people? Should we be trying to punish people? Should we be profiting off the efforts of our criminals? Should we make them all chain gangs? Should we try and, drug them into rehabilitation?
I love that your ramblings always work as a table of contents for every episode.
Yes, it's true.
so fucking fantastic. Okay. Well, let's start with part one, right? We'll start the definition.
I don't know which part was which.
What is a crime?
Okay,
we have
yeah,
to
that's a
start
good
with
one
that
to start with.
definition.
I
We have to
agree.
define
Yeah.
it.
What's
What
a
is
crime?
a crime? How do you define what a crime is? What's a crime?
Yeah.
Uh,
Mr. Bonier.
it's illegal, according to the laws that we set forth, that we agreed upon.
So what should we call a crime, though? What should be the criteria?
Well,
Is there,
let's go back to what your definition is, though.
Sure.
Say it again.
I'll say something illegal according to the laws set forth by us.
Something illegal. Well, an action.
An action
Deemed
illegal.
an action deemed or an action that someone does that has been previously deemed illegal.
Yeah, this is kind of redundant, but yeah.
It's not redundant. It's specific. You have to
Well, I'm saying it's legal because it's legal.
it's illegal because it's illegal.
it defines
No,
itself.
we haven't gotten.
Right.
No. We haven't gotten into the philosophy of it yet. I just want to
Okay.
understand what it is that you're saying. So it has to be an action. An action is what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
an
in a
action
broad
done
term,
by something.
what
Sure.
is your definition of crime?
Right.
Sure. Well, I'd like to go back to what we said last episode about Montesquieu, about you can do whatever you want except if you harm someone else. So I would say
Okay.
those things that harm someone else fall into a crime.
The right to extend your arm stops where my nose begins.
That's good, but then we come into
It's good. It's an old philosophical statement. I didn't come up with that shit.
No, I mean
Go ahead.
that's a good way of summarizing it. But I think
Right.
there might be the whole argument there of the victimless crime, and that brings up a whole set of other.
Sure. No. Let's not go there yet.
Yeah.
So just a crime, something deemed an action done by somebody that's been previously deemed illegal by society.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
No, but that society is what we make it. I mean, I think that's
Society is what we make it. What do you mean?
well, every society is slightly different. Not every, I mean, we're talking
Sure, I'm not
global, the
presupposing
global
the society is the
society. Yeah, I'm just saying, laws of what's a crime in one country might be different than in another country.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah. But you said society. I mean, of course. Either way.
I'm just defining society.
Sure. Which is fine.
But
Not really.
by
You're just
society,
saying-
you mean countries, not necessarily the earth or humanity as a whole.
Yeah, because that's how we divided ourselves so far.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay. So another way of saying this, by the way, is a breach of the social contract is another way of saying it. So the social contract is kind of what we all agree upon once we enter the society itself that you're talking about. And of course, the society is, we have to kind of go into further define exactly what you're talking about.
Well, what's a social contract first? We should define that too.
The social contract.
Is the show just going to become a dictionary?
Well, we should.
It has to be. It's a philosophical show. We have to decide what we're talking about before we start saying.
People will be
Define their
lost
terms.
if we don't. Yeah.
I think they're lost anyways.
They should. Well, that's our job to bring them along. My dear little snowflakes out there, come join.
The Politinkerites.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No.
The
I feel like you're calling them like degenerates.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say like the electorate? Is that sort of like them?
I was actually going closer to idiots, but
Oh, wow.
That's a page out of the Wheelman's book there.
Wheelman was supposed to be here, but fuck that fucking guy.
Yeah, fuck that.
No, I'm kidding. Anyway, let's go back to the philosophy of it. Social contract.
Sure.
The social contract is what you enter in once you agree to be a part of a society, whatever the society is. So in our famous Lost episode, right, we have the island, which of course we'll do again. But if there was no island in the state of nature,
With
the
Locke
second
and
we start-
Rousseau and whatnot.
Right, exactly. Well, Hobbes started it, but that's state of nature. Whatever. We'll go back into this too. State of nature is presupposing the idea that there is no society, right? A bunch of us just land on an island, and the group of people, the little things that they start to decide, that they start to agree upon, is the social contract. So, for you to be a part of that society, you are agreeing to be a part of the social contract, and so thus a crime would be any breach of that social contract.
Sure.
Now, of course, we can go further into the philosophy of whether or not, in other words, if 99% of the society agreed that murder was okay, right, then the 1% didn't, it still would be theoretically legal to murder anybody. That's a realistic society that
Tyranny
could
of the
exist.
majority. Yeah.
Exactly, a tyranny of the majority. So murder is not a crime, and vice versa. In our current situation.
In some countries, stoning is perfectly acceptable way to handle things.
Well, no. Let's not go to punishment yet. Let's first decide whether or not we
I wasn't
have a
even-
good definition on crime.
I wasn't even thinking of that as punishment. I mean, yeah.
Oh, you meant stoning someone in general?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Like a drive-by stoning?
not necessarily, but I mean, that is certainly a form of public murder. So that is,
Oh, well, that's still punishment, though.
It is, but then, if I shoot someone in the street for shooting my child,
It's still punishment.
Exactly.
We
but
can't
then
get into
that's-
punishment yet. We have to define what crime is.
Okay.
We have to figure out what a crime is. And are we comfortable with that breach of social contract being a crime? Are we clear on those terms, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, legally speaking, a crime is exactly what Joseph was saying, that a crime is whatever we deem it to be. So if we are all going to be participants in this society, then yes, that is the social contract that we're ascribing to.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you're born into that social contract, so you don't actually get to sign on that dotted line for
Well,
the
not
most part.
necessarily. You can go to a country that has a different social contract.
Not always. And
I know, but you can. So you're not necessarily just born into it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, though, I mean, emigrating is a
It's a luxury.
yeah, it is something that you have to be able to afford, and that is a classist sort of thing.
Okay.
Agreed.
So for now, just the crime, right? That's the breach of whatever social contract that you have either been, And keep in mind, whether or not it's an appropriate contract or not is up for question.
Yeah,
It's not,
completely
I'm not
irrelevant.
suggesting that it's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that all crime, quote unquote, is just or moral. Obviously. Should we go there? Do you guys want to talk about whether or not a crime, if there is some sort of moral underpinning to all crimes?
Well,
or no?
go ahead. No, you
No,
go.
go for it.
Well, I think that anyone would say that. I mean, obviously, we probably would all agree stealing is wrong. I think that's a pretty.
Why?
Because that affects another person.
Yeah, you're harming it. You're taking something from someone else.
I
Why
think-
do they have ownership of that thing?
I think that has to be the basis for any society.
Yeah,
There is property. It's the question of property.
Well, without property,
yeah.
then crime doesn't really exist in and of itself. So,
Right.
I mean, crime is an extension of ownership
Right.
in essence. I mean, ownership of my body, ownership of my items,
Okay.
whatever it is. So, I mean, if we don't first establish that this is a society where property rights exist, then there's no use having a discussion about crime because it's just anarchy at that point.
We don't just have to agree that property exists.
I don't follow.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Okay, why do you own anything? Why do you own what you own?
Me personally?
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, I mean that is a can get to be an esoteric argument as to
It's perfectly philosophically valid to ask it. I mean, there's no why.
Oh, no.
Why? How does ownership exist?
Yeah, I just don't have a good answer for that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's the stuff that's in my house that
I like the Carlin bit on this.
Okay.
Life is just a big collection of stuff, and then taking more stuff and moving your stuff from one place to another place and getting more stuff.
and getting
but
a
you
bigger
said my
place to put your stuff.
How did it become your stuff in the first place?
Because we live in a society that has deemed ownership of property a right or a fundamental principle of our societal contract.
Okay, so you guys don't have an argument for why property exists in the first place.
No, other than it's in my possession, and I will hurt you if you try and take that away.
But that's the retribution. That's the
Can I
punishment.
throw the opposite your way? Do you have an argument why property shouldn't exist?
What? Sure. So everything in nature is
Communism.
nature, right?
Right.
So why at any point did something become yours when it could have just as easily become mine? Let's start with land, right? Let's start in the state of nature in our famous Lost episode, right?
Yeah.
When we stop there, why is this tract of land yours? It's just the land. Why is the things that you got off of the land yours than not, right? So again,
I was here first.
Right. So the argument again in our famous Lost episode that we kind of established off of this was that the reason that ownership exists is because it is an extension of the work of your own body. Okay, and we do start with the presupposition that you own your body and you own yourself, and anything that you work for is therefore an extension of you, and thus that is how you attain ownership over things.
Sure.
I think that's Rousseau. My fucking philosophy is like,
But it's
whatever.
true.
So-
it's basically just establishing
Or it might be
rights
Locke, though.
before we get into our social contract. I mean, you can think of it like the Declaration of Independence before the Constitution or something like that. We established the rights of man in it. We did find it.
Well, I mean, even going more fundamental than that, when the lion chases down the gazelle and he takes his first bite,
Right.
that is his ownership. And,
Right.
he's
He
going
worked
to...
for it.
Yeah, he worked for it. He's going to defend it.
Right.
And he might give some to his cubs or his mate or whatever that is.
Right.
But beyond that, anyone else that comes near is going to get fucked up.
Right, there you go. So thus,
Sure.
and taking anything away from, not so much is going to get fucked up, just is acting immorally.
Well, acting threateningly, and this
We
gets
didn't
back
figure
to...
out this morality thing yet last time,
yeah.
did we?
I mean,
So-
in that instance, then, are you
no.
saying that lion has morality because he is defending, or
No, no,
the
no,
other
no.
lion
No.
should have
No.
morality for coming in? I mean,
No, it depends on remember, it's just how we define it.
Exactly.
We agree upon well-being, and well-being is something that we can value, or we can ascribe value to, and any detriment to that well-being is something bad.
Oh no! Oh no!
It's important.
We're
to
getting into the
clarify,
moral
though.
hole.
It's important to clarify.
It's
better
important.
than the religious hole.
Hey,
That's what she said.
If we put a sheet between us, it's okay.
There we go. Okay, fine. So now we can agree upon property, and a breach of that social contract is a crime, if you will.
So property as some sort of a storage of labor, as an extension of money being a storage and transference of labor.
Yes, well put.
well, your question originally was some crime okay? I think it was, or something along the lines of that, or some.
No, my question was, how do you define crime?
Right, but then
What
your
is a crime?
second one was: are there any crimes that are defendable, or what was something?
Well, I guess the question is that it might not just be the social contract that determines something being a crime,
Right.
Because that gets us back into morality, right? If you're acting immorally, whether something is illegal or not might not have a bearing on whether something is a crime,
Right.
We
And
can
that
talk-
might have nothing to do with whether or not it is immoral.
exactly right.
So-
So we we don't have to go there though, because we already did. But especially because the question is, what do we do about this crime? So we have to start somewhere. So why don't we just say that a crime is the breach of social contract and breach of the social contract, and we can table the fucking morality discussion for.
Okay, so going forward,
Sounds good.
how should we decide those moral contracts? How should we come up with the crimes? How should we identify those crimes?
So that's based on the society.
Is that? But I mean, are we?
those are different.
Tyranny of the majority essentially. Then are we 51%? Are we 66% in order to agree? Does 100% of a society have to agree on a law for it to be valid?
Go ahead, Joey.
Well, 100's not realistic.
Why?
Because no one 100% agrees on anything.
I agree, but
just
I'm kidding.
to take.
No, I don't agree.
I mean, but even 90 is unrealistic. Just look at
But to
Congress
take the other side of that,
go ahead.
if there is a proposition or a law on the books that 100% of the people can't agree to, does that not make it immoral? Does that not make it forcing your will upon other people?
Right.
I'm not just, there's...
Again, if 99% of people said that murder was legal,
I wouldn't call them
fine.
other people. Maybe you would, but you would call them fellow citizens or something like that because you all agree on that contract. It's like...
Right, but does that make them right, is what I think Sean's saying.
To me, I would say yes.
No, it doesn't.
Kind of,
not.
kind of.
There would be no unjust laws in your world.
No. But theoretically, obviously, they're not. But they aim. That's what they aim for. I mean,
right. But right. But
that's the ideal.
We can argue about specifics, but that's the. Yeah.
Well, what's the number, though? How much of a
Right, that's what I'm
society
saying.
has to agree on a law for it to be applicable? How much do we have to all understand this to be detrimental in order for us to want to punish this?
I would say, again, it depends on the society.
Yeah, it does.
I am always pulled back into just the general morality. I think that we should strive to make laws that are as close to being morally just as possible, right? And again, we can go back to defining morals and questions of that, because I don't think that morality is just purely relative. Like, I don't think that your morality is unequal to my morality. I think that the determination comes from the weighing of the good and it's a little bit of utilitarianism, which is the greatest good outweighs the greatest evil. But everybody sort of. Obviously, again, intention matters, so we take into account that.
Wait, was that in our food one?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did that one. Okay, good.
Just
making sure.
Our listeners understand this part.
I'm the only one
if you're,
confused.
I'll put it this way: if your outlook on morality is that killing is moral, and my outlook is that killing is immoral, but if you're a pure moral relativist, then that by definition is saying that we're both equally correct.
Right.
And that can't make sense.
No,
Because
that
then there
can,
would be,
because then we need to craft a society where both of us are allowed to have those beliefs. The whole reason that a big part of the reason that America exists as a country is because of the religious argument. Unfortunately, opening that up to Mr. Bonier. But the idea that we were, the original pilgrims were trying to escape religious persecution to set up a place where all people would be allowed to believe what it is that they want. So in theory,
But you guys are talking about beliefs. Crimes are actions. You can believe whatever you want. I mean, it's when that belief tends to an action.
It's our beliefs that inform our morality, which informs our legal system, which identifies what actually is a crime. So if we don't agree on a belief, then we can't agree on what is a crime. So in that society,
but they're not equally right. They're not equally correct.
Well, that's getting back to that. Without a God, there's no correct in my opinion.
Sean,
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to do this because you're going to get angry at me for going down the religious hole. I'm going to say
I opened it up.
In your mind, is Sharia law equal to the American law, or even any country, any Western democracy's law? What doesn't matter. Whatever.
I believe that they have their justifications as much as we do. I don't necessarily agree with them morally, but I don't know that is.
But in your world,
Are they acting morally? Is what he's saying.
Well, that's a different question as to whether they should exist. And like I said, I really believe in moral relativism. So since I don't have a God, they might be acting morally. I can't say that they're not, because their God might be the one that I have to face when I'm dead.
Okay. Well, how do you determine what's moral then? Like, how do you determine your own morality in the first place?
That's why I'm a hermit and I don't live in a house.
Because you're just not sure anyway. You're like, I don't know. You guys figure it out.
Yeah, I mean,
because in your worldview, both are equally good and bad, and there can be no morality in the first place, and thus none of it makes any sense. It all sort of falls apart. There is no morality, and if there is no morality, there is no good or bad.
That is the crux of my argument. I don't believe there is a true evil or a true altruism. I believe that everything is shades of gray there.
I think everything is shades of gray, but I don't think that there's a difference between there being shades of gray and there being no color whatsoever. That's the difference. Like right now, so moral relativism would say that, if you're a pure utilitarianist, right, then there is black and white. There is something good, something bad, and that is justified by just the kind of total weighing of good versus, of pleasure versus pain.
And I don't think it's for me. It's less good and evil and more beneficial and non-beneficial to me. So to me, that is every individual's morality.
I'm sorry, say again.
So it's the benefit that something stands to affect me, whether or not it's going to hurt or bolster what I do.
Right, but then it would be just for you to steal something from someone. Like it would be morally justified for you to steal something because it just benefits you.
And there are cases where I think there is moral justification for thievery.
That's not what he's saying.
Right. I'm not saying that there aren't situations in which theft is okay. I'm saying each individual scenario, right? Remember we talked about last time, like, the murdering someone. And so it's not that you both – we'll just do the exact example, right? If I remember correctly. You said that a guy's running at you with a knife and you kill him, right? You're saying that he might be justified because his rationale for running at you with a knife is because he doesn't have any money, he needs it as his last resort, right? But the problem is those are two separate actions. The first action is him running at you with a knife because it's his last resort. The second action is you killing him, right? So we can then discuss both of those actions. They aren't combined, right? So the first action is he doesn't have any money. And his decision is to chase you with a knife, right? He's threatening you, right? And the decisions the deciding factors for him was that it's a last resort. He doesn't have enough money to do it. Do you guys think he was acting morally in that instance?
Not necessarily those specific details, but it could be skewed to a moral position.
Go ahead, skew it.
Okay. I don't know, just throwing it out. Let's say the person that he's attacking was responsible for his lack of money.
Got it. Okay.
So it's a wrong begetting a wrong, and in there.
So he's threatening the person with the knife for the purpose of getting money because in his mind, the money is rightfully his. It was his in the first place.
Right.
Okay. In that instance, do you guys think he was acting morally right or wrong? And again, there's gray. We can say whatever. But I mean, as far as your own determination, what do you think? Does it feel more right than wrong or more wrong than right?
Revenge and retribution certainly feels moral to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's terrible, right? Or at the very least, it's understandable. Joey?
I agree. I just think we're getting a little bogged down. I don't mean to be...
No. Once we get out of these woods, we won't be bogged down anymore. Okay. Don't fucking take us anywhere. Yeah, just pay attention.
Sorry.
So, cool. We've agreed that new instance, the new scenario where the guy ran at Sean with the knife is because Sean stole from him.
Okay.
Right? So he's sort of morally justified. Again, not right or wrong, moral justification. We feel like he's morally justified. It doesn't feel that right, but it's, and then we get to the revenge element and all that stuff.
I am much more comfortable with that term for some reason.
No, because that's the term that that is what morality is. It's a question of whether someone is morally justified or not whether someone is moral or not.
Or is right or is wrong.
Right, exactly. So that's that one instance where it's okay. Now, the second instance was, did you know... So it actually changes the second instance where you killed him, right? Obviously, the guy knows that he took all of his money, and obviously the guy is running it with him with a knife, and he kills him.
Right.
Is he morally justified in killing him?
Yeah, I believe self-defense is always morally justified.
Right. It's weird, right? They're both acting morally.
That's my argument.
That doesn't mean that they're both acting morally. It doesn't mean that, and so again, we take those different examinations and we figure it out. But they can both agree. If the guy running at the guy with a knife is saying he's wrong for killing me, it's like, no. He thought you were going to fucking kill him. Mm-hmm. What's your moral justification in saying that, like, how is he not morally justified in defending himself? And then the guy running up with the knife is, well, because he killed me. And it's like, dude, fuck you. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. He's like, yeah, but don't you understand? I'm like, no, we understand you were acting morally justified as well. You were both acting morally justified. And yet that's why the guy might not go to jail, because it was self-defense. Do you see what I mean? That's not moral relativism. That's a newer version of morality that I agree with. And so I wanted to clarify that before we get into what a crime is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if we're not going to call that moral relativism, I need another word for it. But
morality, the word that you hate. It's just the discussion of morality. That's what it is. That's what it is, and that's what I mean when I say moral. Just so we're clear.
I will cede to the gentleman with glasses.
Thank you. Or one of them.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So now we've determined whether something is moral or not and what we mean by morality. The question is, are all crimes moral?
Or immoral?
I'm sorry. Are all crimes immoral?
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely not.
Why not?
I mean, you could take the Robin Hood example, we kind of done. I mean, if we want to, stealing from the rich to give to the poor kind of thing. In some cases, you can morally justify, as you've just said, that certain crimes are necessary.
Right. But I mean, speeding's a crime. Jaywalking's a crime. Is that necessarily immoral? No.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Why is running a red light not immoral? It is there is a moral decision going into you running the red light.
I think it is slightly.
Well,
very much so.
Unethical, if you will.
Well, I mean, take those cases. LA is not necessarily the place to have this discussion, but in the middle of Illinois, where I grew up, there's lots of nothingness cornfields, and if you're driving to one of the colleges late at night, say it's 3 a.m, you can see for miles in every direction. You come to a cross section where it's a red light, and that red light stays there for a couple of minutes, and you have a perfectly clear view. There is nothing immoral about going through that red light.
Right. You are morally justified in running it. You haven't done anything immoral, and yet you've committed a crime.
Exactly.
So but you've added a bunch of circumstances to that situation that make it
exactly.
Which is okay, but I think overall, if you look at the actual moral justification of the law, it is a moral. It's like it's putting your life in front of someone else's. It's putting everyone in danger.
It's safer to have the law there. That doesn't necessarily mean that breaking the law is always makes people
not always, but
right.
Okay, but exactly. I was just saying in that situation it could be you could see it.
I'm just saying that when it's safe. I went to an extreme there certainly, but it is.
Yeah, it's just answering the question. That's all. As whether all crimes.
Fair enough. I was just kind of countering.
God, man.
Sorry.
No, it's
Counter
fine. You're
better.
Right. For Joey. So great. Okay, so we've decided that not all crimes are immoral. That's fine. And yet there are crimes. Obviously, right? And which we've agreed upon as the definition, a breach in a social contract. So I think that now can breach us into the first question. What do we do about a crime? You can go on a ramble if you want. You do a ramble.
That just happens organically, man. I can't manufacture a ramble. But that is, I think the first question we have to ask is, are we going to punish or rehabilitate? I think we have to, as a society, figure out what it is that we're going to do about that crime in general.
Yeah, that's a great. You know what? It's funny. There's this is again digging back into philosophy. There's 3 different ways to look at the justification behind punishment. Right? There's the retribution. In other words, it's morally just to
eye for an eye, sort of.
Well, it goes deeper than that. It's not just that, but it's because a crime is a breach of a social contract. Punishment is justified because you've breached a social contract. But then there's the utilitarian argument that actually claims that punishment is evil. Punishment is naturally evil. However, what you're doing is you're outweighing the pleasure versus pain. Okay, so the amount of pleasure that person has kind of gained and benefited needs to be outweighed by the amount of pain you inflict upon them. And again, because the amount of pain that they've caused others is, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of weighing the pleasure versus pain. That's the utilitarian justification behind punishing someone. The third was something else. It was
like your debt to society.
Right, exactly. Yeah, basically.
A moral debt.
Yeah. Right. And I don't really have an answer to that necessarily. I mean, I think that Like, why do we punish people in the first place? Why should we punish people?
I think it's mostly a sense of revenge, a sense of equaling the scales. Someone kills someone and we feel vindicated in taking their life, whether it's life imprisonment or actually, death sentence. I think that is at least the crux of the idea or the basis of it.
Why though? What's behind that? You said we feel better.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's
I think
just
it's
to make
that eye for an
society
eye
feel
thing.
better.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, it's supposed to be partly deterrent.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask
Me
you.
too.
Yeah.
I was going to say deterrent. I think for the smaller stuff like misdemeanors, I think deterrents are pretty good. Mm-hmm. For instance, paying a speeding ticket or whatever, it seems to work. I think according to statistics. But
So you're less likely to speed if if there's a monetary or at the very least some sort of punishment attached to it beforehand, you're less likely to do so.
But then that punishment needs to be relative, I believe. One of the big faults with the current system is the fact that a millionaire pays the same $60 ticket that a minimum wage worker pays.
Well, they've done the same crime.
They have done the same crime, but they haven't felt the same retribution.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
wow,
So-
that's really socialist of you, but I like it.
I don't know if it's socialist
Just being
necessarily.
poor my
It's-
whole life and looking at people.
I don't. It seems to me like you rich guys aren't paying your fair share. Let's get the percentages up there and.
Well, I mean, okay, so
kinda like it.
a guy driving a Bentley, he gets a $60 parking ticket that is, 10 minutes of hourly pay for him, if even that. For someone that is, working minimum wage, that's an entire day's work. So is that crime then equal to both of those people? Are they both having the same amount of deterrent to not do that again? Is there any reason for the Bentley driver to not just scoff at the law and do whatever the fuck he wants?
Huh. That's a great question.
Interesting point. I think I compare it to sports where they fine like players like
Fuck sports.
like $300,000 like for smoking pot or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a ridiculous sum if you were to give that to anyone else. You smoke pot, your job is fining you $300,000.
Right.
But even $300,000 to them is actually kind of not that much. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And
I like the idea of it. I do.
I think that's a Scandinavian idea. I believe that's a something. What's that?
Socialist.
Yeah, it's certainly socialist, but
Dirty word.
I don't know if it's just. I see. That's the thing.
well, yeah. I mean, is it socialist or is it capitalist?
I'm just hesitant to apply a label to it one way or the other. I
certainly.
mean, the question is like whether or not there's a moral justification behind what you're saying, and I think it's fair if the idea is that you're trying to inflict the same amount of pain, so to speak, on a person, or at the very least give them the kind of right kind of deterrent.
Exactly.
Then what you're suggesting is a scale that's specific to you as a person, as far as what would be be the appropriate punishment.
Certainly hard to.
I don't think it's that socialist or capitalist or anything. I think it's just why don't we have to call it anything? Fuck it. It's just interesting.
Well, should we extend that to prison sentences?
Well, that's the point. Exactly.
Yeah,
I think we should.
I don't know. I don't think.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
by that logic, yes.
Shouldn't the punishment fit the crime in general? Like, shouldn't that be the kind of goal if we are going to go the punishment route as opposed to the?
But I think, and even Sean said this when you first said it. Isn't the crime the same?
The crime is.
So in other words, you're saying that the time is the same for everybody. Like your day is the same as my day.
Sure.
Although your dollar might be different than my dollar.
Right. I mean, I could have $1 million, but we still got the same amount of time on this planet. Generally.
Right, generally speaking.
Right, but the amount of my time that it takes to pay that fine is going to be much different than the amount of time it takes for you to pay that fine.
No. He's saying prison sentences.
Your
Your day is the same as my day.
We also
so
get
then
into
why
it-
should your your year is the same as my year? If we do the same crime and the punishment is 10 years in prison, it should be the same.
I don't necessarily disagree with
So
that.
to answer your question, it does apply. It just happens to be the fact that it's equal.
Yeah,
Then we
it's
also-
just a
unless you
different.
can think of an instance where it doesn't.
Well, yeah, it's just a different scale we're using, or a different system of money. Essentially, it's either monetary if it's a fine, but time, jail time is jail time. So,
I like it. It's the great leveler. It makes it is. It's the great justice.
I think it's a good way to put it. Okay, so that's an interesting way to put it. What is the next question then?
So we're talking about punishment.
Yes.
would it be better to rehabilitate?
Yeah, I think the general trend over the past 100 years is going from punishment to rehabilitation. Generally is a trend.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
And there's also the radical view too. Like there's the conservative view, which is that punishment should be, but everybody has a rational action, and anything that they do should have some sort of rational response. And then, we all have free will. And then there's the liberal. And so, it's a deterrent to kind of punish someone and inflict pain. Whereas the liberal view is that you can sort of rehabilitate someone, and that it's a question of their society and a question of their upbringing, et cetera. And then there's the radical view, which says that fuck society. It's like Sean's view, basically. It's like, fuck society in the first place. Everything should just be fucking changed. We'll change it all. We'll figure it out.
Burn it down.
Yeah, right. Which actually, I'm probably misrepresenting the radical view of whatever it is. But so I'm sorry, you were saying historically speaking, what is the trend of prisons?
Well, but then again, I mean, you can talk about the trend of America as the population of prisoners has gone crazily, exponentially up since the 1980s, since the drug war, or actually 1972. Nixon started it really, 72, which is crazy. But I mean, there was also the sentencing laws in the 90s, which changed a lot of stuff, which increased obviously the misdemeanor drug laws, which we're trying to get changed
all the
now.
mandatory minimums. So.
Yeah, but that is being talked about now by the politicians currently. So it is somewhat of a topic, and I think this gets back to the Black Lives Matter project right now, a movement, and a lot going on there, and seeing that laws are somewhat institutionally racist. Do you guys see that?
We'll jump there in a second. You skipped over a bunch of shit there.
I jumped over a bunch of shit, but I guess I wanted to just talk right into it. Okay, go ahead.
We will, but let's get there first. The question at hand is the purpose of prison to be punishment or rehabilitation? What should it be?
In my mind, rehabilitation. But I think if you're asking about the history, it's interesting that we started.
Well, of course, it started as punishment.
Yeah, but the idea of a penitentiary was so old school.
It wasn't even
religious.
Old school. Well, it was almost a nice thing. Before they just fucking kill you.
Be penitent is just sit in a room and pray, and you'll become good one day.
Right.
Where we've gone now you need therapy 24 hours a day.
Well, it's better than being chained to the wall in a dungeon.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's progress of a kind.
To punish someone. That was the point of punishment. Was just that.
Sure.
And I mean, even before that, as you probably know, was they would just kind of open the gates and be like, "Fuck off."
But other than punishment, is there something to be said for just keeping those people away from society?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Removing them from the equation so that there aren't any more crimes committed.
Right. I mean, is it equally just to just kind of put them to sleep and say, you say you committed a crime, so we're going to just put you to sleep for 30 years rather than putting you in a penitentiary for 30 years.
And hopefully
we haven't actually inflicted any pain. We've just taken them out of society.
I think society has an obligation to rehabilitate them and make them productive members of society again.
Can you rehabilitate people?
A portion.
Okay.
And I think we're finding out every day, honestly, that medicine is and technology is getting better, and that fraction is going up and up and up. Yeah. We're realizing that we can solve a lot more problems than we didn't think before. I mean, just look at shell shock in World War I.
Right.
They just shot those guys. No, honestly, they did. They simply, watch Paths of Glory. They just shot dudes for just being we're a coward. But now, we understand PTSD. We have therapy. We have medications and stuff. We understand it's a problem. So I mean, just look at that. I guess it's 100 years, but
no, it's true. I mean, another way of putting it is
a crazy amount of progress.
Another way of putting it as well is I don't think anybody wants to be addicted to drugs or wants to be a sex offender, but a lot of people just kind of have that fucking something in their head that they're a sociopath essentially.
Sure.
In the sex offender sense or whatever.
Sure.
And so what you're suggesting is, could there be a drug, right? Could there be a drug that rehabilitates them?
Or should we just remove all the sex offenders from society?
Mm-hmm. Well, no. If you're saying that people can be rehabilitated,
I am.
Right.
I also think this is
just
over
time. You're saying over time we could figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I think
society has an obligation to rehabilitate people.
I think, and honestly, even technology, I know this sounds ridiculous, but porn has probably gotten rid of a lot of crimes as far as the creepy sexual crimes. You know what I mean? Now they could do it at home. I don't know, as opposed to go out and get their jollies. You know what I mean?
That is certainly a working theory, but the other side of that, unfortunately, is that the same amount of people that argue that it increases, that it exposes you to things that you wouldn't have done before. But I mean, that's the same as the old school, movies are going to destroy our children, video games are going to destroy our children argument. Right. So, I mean,
the psychology's out on it.
Exactly. We don't have a hard and fast, pun intended, study on that to really justify one position or the other.
But the real question or the real point that you made is that society has an obligation to rehabilitate people. Why?
Well, one, it's for their own selfish benefit.
For society's own
sustainability.
To have another member of the wall, working and paying taxes.
But then that kind of gets us into, is it enough of a contribution? Is it enough for them to be then used as part of a corporate machine? So all the prisons that actually are used as factories, are they now contributing members of society because they are building things? It used to be just making license plates, but now it's, everything from data entry to, call centers and all sorts of, menial jobs are being taken.
For $4 an hour?
If even, not even that.
I think that's the high end, by the way. I think it's could be like 20 cents.
Well, no, I think the $4 an hour is what the jail gets, and I think the actual the actual inmate gets pennies on the dollar or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it's still a super cheap source of labor.
There's an argument that's somewhat slavery. I mean, you can't. It's not slavery. It's pretty close though.
Yeah, but then, there is a giant workforce there, and there is work to be done. Is there not something to be said for the mental state of having a responsibility?
More importantly, the presupposition is that they've done something wrong. They've committed a crime, and so we're not enslaving them necessarily.
It's still part of punishment.
Right, it's the punishment.
My point is that the punishment might be worse than the crime. I guess slavery.
Well, sure.
Slavery.
Yeah, working in a call center is way worse than...
Dude.
Then
I have.
Then fucking getting your hand cut off.
Well, that's a bit.
I was being serious. I've spent way too many years in a call center.
Me too. Yeah,
I have not.
Oh yeah. No, it's horrible.
I did. I did like a whole summer one time.
Soul crushing torture.
Yeah, I guess it's not that bad.
This coming from three guys speaking into microphones.
Exactly. I was going to say
such a first world problem.
Right. Yeah. I had to call someone all day.
Yeah. That girl treated me so badly.
Indeed.
So So the society has go ahead, Shawnee.
No, go for it.
Okay. Society has an obligation to rehabilitate people.
Yeah.
Not punishment. Why? Why is pure punishment inflicting pain not better? Is that not more of a deterrent?
And does it have to be separate? Do we have to go with one or the other, or is there a portion that is punishment and a portion that is rehabilitation? Is there a way to combine those things?
I think we try to. We just don't do a good job.
We do a horrible job. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I mean, like a prison in many ways is just as much punishment as it is rehabilitation.
I think it's way more punishment than it is rehabilitation these days.
Me too.
Well, I'm sure, but it's not as bad as killing them. It's not as bad as stoning them or cutting their hand off. So it's a trend.
If you watch Oz, being raped constantly is not necessarily my idea of a fun time.
Right.
You might be better off with a death penalty, if you're in a situation where
So it's worse in that sense.
It can be, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would think that is something that, could be even psychologically detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they talk about all the time. You have these petty criminals that are going into jail for very minor offenses, but when they go in, it basically becomes a criminal school.
Right.
And by the time they come out, they're way worse criminals than they were, and they have all of the connections to do whatever it is that they are going to embark on in their new criminal enterprises.
So in many ways, prisons themselves are worse than they are. Do more harm than good.
I don't know. I don't know, man. That's
I don't know, man. I really don't.
Well,
is there an alternative? I mean, if we think that so then we can go the opposite route where it's not just because like I said, it is sort of combining it, right? And for the same amount of people that are spending years and years of their lives for a crime that didn't warrant it, there might be just as many people getting rehabilitated in a way, and there fucking isn't. I'm just I'm arguing that what if there was?
Well,
at the very least, I think prisons try to rehabilitate just as much as they do punish. It's the other criminals that are punishing each other. I don't think it's the state that's punishing them. It's just the culture of prison, right? I don't think the intent is to punish them.
No, it's if the intent wasn't to punish them, then they would do something about it. What
do you mean?
Well, if we're talking about prison violence, you can definitely control that if you wanted to. to. You have a building that is secure with little rooms for every individual person.
They are trying. They're not allowed to have knives. They're not like they have to work to kill them to kill each other at least.
Well, okay,
I think that they are trying.
This gets to the point that this gets to my point that certain prisons are better than others, and recently the statistics have shown, or at least some, that private prisons have been a lot of these big offenders with what Sean's talking about, lackadaisical guarding and that kind of stuff. And there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in private prisons. But there's also a whole other aspect of this, which is the illegal immigrant aspect, because. Seriously, because this is a crime, and we have them, just warehoused.
Don't we deport them though?
No, a lot. We have like millions of people in warehoused in like New York and in the Southwest, mostly in like New Mexico, Arizona, California. But we have like literally millions. And I was also
awaiting deportation then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine so we are deporting them, but it's the equivalent of someone being on death row for 50 years.
Right, I guess. But we're paying for it and blah blah blah. And they're privately owned, and given contracts by the government.
But we're trying to deport them
eventually, I think. But we can't maybe because I don't know.
Well, right, because their country might not exist anymore.
Right, for whatever reason. But yeah, exactly. But the point is, they're still being warehoused. I don't know where I was going with this.
I don't either, man.
But no, I had a great point. God damn
it. Well, to get back. You can figure that out wherever you were going.
God damn it.
What about the idea of hospitals? I know especially in California, most of the state mental facilities were closed down by Reagan when he was the governor here. That was basically a general trend that happened throughout the United States. I don't know if it's as bad in all of the states as it is here, but essentially when all of those closed down, they just kind of released those people into the street.
Yeah, exactly.
And then most of them, the ones that became homeless usually filtered their way back into the criminal system.
Well,
so the jails are essentially taking the place of the mental health care facilities.
Exactly. I do think that a better situation would be to be able to rehabilitate every offender, right? Versus just punishing them.
Right, but I mean, it doesn't have to be that cut and dry. At least a percentage.
It doesn't, but that's what we strive for. That's what we can strive for. And I think that is what we are trying to do. Like, that's why I was saying before, I don't think that the intent of prison is necessarily just to punish. I think it does go hand in hand, the rehabilitation, and I would almost say that the punishment is sort of, your lack of freedom in a sense. That's what the justification is there. But of the shit that happens inside that you're talking about, they are trying to they do take measures to curtail violence in prison and crime in prison.
I mean, yes, certainly. And most of my knowledge of the inside comes from TV and movies. So obviously I can't really speak with a whole lot of authority on it.
Sure.
But it's a matter of...
I guess I'll put it that way. Again, like you said before, the intent isn't just to punish. It's not like we chain people to the wall and you know what I mean?
But I think you're referring to an overarching societal intent, which
yes.
I believe that to be true. Certainly, as a society, I think that we do view prison as a place to rehabilitate as well as punish.
Right.
But I think that the people that are actually in charge, that are making the decisions, the private corporations that are running the majority of our prisons now, are not necessarily in that same mindset. First off, anytime you bring a corporation to anything, their sole responsibility is to make money for their shareholders.
Right.
That is their legal obligation more than anything else. So the treatment of the prisoners
sure.
is certainly subservient to the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
And if it's easier to let
privately
them
run prisons, privately owned prisons and stuff like that.
Certainly, but
judges getting kickbacks. There's plenty of stories.
Oh
about
yeah,
this.
yeah. But it filters into all of the prison systems, because at a certain point it becomes easier to just close the cage and let the animals take care of themselves than it is to actually get in there and try and solve these problems or try and keep things from happening. As long as it doesn't spill out over, everything is okay, as long as it stays maintained within that certain structure.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I guess that can jump us into what you were talking about before, Joey. You were saying this so I guess it takes us there, right?
You mean like keep it out of my backyard, keep all the bad people away in some confined area. Yeah, that's what you're trying to relate back to.
No, I was going to... Well, I'm not really sure where I was going, actually. I guess I was going to start breaching into society as a whole. Because what you're saying is, all these problems, how to solve them, et cetera, and what do we do about all this crime? Prisons are worse in a sense because once you've added corporations, et cetera, all this other stuff, right?
Right,
So
but what is the ideal? What should we be doing with our criminals once the once the hammer goes down and the judge says guilty? What do we do with them?
I think we answered that. The intent is to try and rehabilitate.
How do we do that, though?
I mean, that's a big question. It's a psychology question. It's a science question. I don't
We got
know.
an hour.
But I'm neither a psychologist nor a scientist, so I can't.
We're fixing the
propose
world
the
here,
pill.
man.
Well, no, I think the first step is acknowledging more mental health stuff. I think that is a big one.
Okay,
is the
sure.
psychology, just what you just said. Is,
Sure.
is that's a huge one. We don't know enough about mental health. We don't put enough research into it. That is
We still don't know what we should eat, let alone what we should have in our heads.
Right.
I just think that's the first step. I mean, we're not psychologists, but that's the
goal. So mental health.
and I don't think putting people in.
If there was a pill that would stop someone from being a sociopath, but again,
I think it's clear to me, maybe I'm from my armchair psychology, that prisons are psychologically damaging.
But then,
right.
Just to bring
That's
it,
why. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, no, just to touch on your point, though, if there is a pill that is going to be there, is that moral
Exactly.
to force that
administer them.
person to take
Exactly.
it? Yeah. Can we then, basically rewrite the human brain? I mean, that is certainly something, not right now, but it is something futurely possible to have a pill that could control certain sects of the brain and, possibly turn off sexual desire.
Right.
It's
moral to
the
force
plot of
them
A
to do
Clockwork
that.
Orange.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
precisely
Yep.
the concept.
It's trying to rehabilitate them by force force feeding them brainwash.
The argument of the book, of course, is that you can't. There is no such thing. It's
Yeah.
an oxymoron, right?
Right.
Mankind is, Alex is the orange, right? And the rest. Well, yeah, it's good. So A Clockwork Orange essentially is an oxymoron, right?
Go ahead.
So Anthony Burgess, it's an old kind of Cockney phrase that was called the queerest thing imaginable, the queerest of queer things imaginable. Right, would be a clockwork orange. An orange is a natural entity. It's a naturally growing thing. A clockwork is a man-made thing.
Cool.
Society is made up of clockworks, right? People who kind of work and do what they need to do. Alex is the only orange in there. He is natural. Man, it's a sort of a Hobbesian look at it, of course, where everybody is kind of just feeding and enjoys the pleasure, and he just is natural. Beethoven is violent music. Alex is violent. It's the whole point.
Pure passion.
And yet society. Everybody else is just a clockwork. However, there's always that orange underneath them all, right? There's the guy who's got the writer's got the Beethoven music. The homeless guy is still willing to beat the shit out of Alex later on. His friends, etc., become clockworks. They become cops, and they sort of organize the clocks, if you will. And yet still they are oranges at their heart. But what happened with Alex, once you turned him into a clockwork orange, of course, is he tries to kill himself, right? So you can't be a clockwork orange. It's just unnatural to do so. That's the point of the movie. And
that's according to Kubrick, and he was a freak.
Well, it's according to Anthony Burgess and Kubrick. But the real question at hand is it that's the thing.
But not everyone is Alex. That's a small portion of...
Sure, but is it just to turn him into a clockwork orange?
With a pill or otherwise.
Right.
Right. And so in another society that deems homosexuality immoral,
right, there you go.
Is there a pill that turns them straight or turns off that sexual desire for their own sex? Is that something that is morally justified in administering?
Yeah, according to their morals, Sean, it is
their moral
justified.
relativism, certainly.
Yeah. Well, but then you go into the question of, you have to ask yourself first, is homosexuality immoral?
Yeah.
And like if we say, if we say murder is immoral, right? We can go into there and we can decide whether or not morality, and the way we kind of do that again is whether or not we ascribe value to life. And so if murder, in a sense, if we agree upon the fact that murder is immoral and the cause of it is being a sociopath, not understanding the implications of what you've done and not being able to emotionally connect, if there is a pill to stop someone from being a sociopath, or at the very least to empathize with others, I guess estrogen. That was sexist. That was sexist as fuck. I apologize. I'm sorry. In any event,
No, I'll stand by that.
It's still complimentary.
Yeah.
It was still sexist. That was fuck. I apologize. Anyway.
That is an interesting conundrum, though. So if you
is
could,
it moral?
Yeah, if you could give a sociopath empathy,
right?
Is that moral? Is that, I mean, you're
altering their,
and arguably you're inflicting pain on them that they didn't have before. arguably they were fine
Well,
as a sociopath.
I don't know if you're inflicting pain, but you are taking away their freedom to be their own self.
Well, if you're a sociopath, you don't have empathy.
Right.
And if you give them a pill to have empathy, then they are feeling the pain of the people around them when they feel that empathy.
Boom.
So you are...
I wish these mics could fall.
you are in essence inflicting pain on them.
Right.
You know, I mean, is that then morally justified?
No. Under those definitions, it would not be. I think you've just solved it.
Yeah, we're fixing the world one problem at a time.
Or hurting it. Because we did solve the world. We had a little pill that like stopped being sociopath, and Sean's like,
but no one's gonna
we're
take
inflicting
it.
pain, and it's like, no, it would. No, we're saying that you would forcibly administer it to them.
Right, and as a
Oh, I
quasi...
thought you guys agreed that we can't do that.
We did just now.
Yeah,
but
so
we
got
had
a bunch
fixed
of
the
this
world before
pill.
that.
Oh, okay.
We had fixed the world. Like a fucking pill that would stop sociopaths fixes the world.
We're not
completely.
using it.
I don't know that
Because
a world
it's-
full of
because-
empathy
right.
is really fixing things.
Well, maybe yes or no.
Is turning
It really
Charles
just feels
Manson
bad.
into, John Lennon? Is that no? It's a bad example. But
Right, that's what I'm saying. No, forcibly. It's immoral to do so.
That's not okay. Yeah, I guess you're. I don't.
Only because
I mean-
you're stepping on his free will and you're inflicting pain.
Right.
And of course,
that's
now we
just
get
as bad.
Well, maybe
In
we're
some
now
ways.
getting into utilitarianism in the
Does
sense
it-
of the
Not
greatest
just
good
as
versus the
bad, but
greatest
it's
bad.
Does it have to be both
Pretty
of those
bad.
things? Does it have to be crushing the free will and inflicting pain in order for it to be...
You have to take into account all of the things.
Yeah, by definition, it's taking away.
You have to
free
take
will.
into account
Yeah.
all of it. So taking the free will with the amount of people that he is killing,
Yeah.
that's the question, right? And you start to outweigh that. So okay, so turning the instances, we can theoretically turn Charles Manson into John fucking Lennon. I'd be hard pressed to find the morality in not doing that. But the question is, once we force him to do that, that has larger implications that have to do with free will and the freedom of yourself, and it kind of has a weird precedent that you're starting. That okay, well, if you can administer that,
It's an
then
insane precedent.
yeah, that's the problem.
That's
That's
a-
Plus, I got to buy the White Album again.
you don't have to.
It wouldn't be as good.
You don't like the White Album?
No, that was a Men in Black joke.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. So there you go. That's again the point is you just have to weigh all the morality involved and the implications for everything. There is no objective moral. It's just you weigh it.
Right.
And we've fucked up free will, and yet we can't by definition turn Charles Manson into John Lennon.
So,
Although I think he'd rather be a Beach Boy anyway.
He likes acoustic guitar.
yeah.
Well, he was. You know the whole story the Beach Boys, right? With Charles Manson.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's not.
Well, yeah, they can look it up. Listeners can look it up. Go ahead.
So, I guess just to transition a little bit further, should our laws only apply to our social contract, or when other people are inflicted or entering our sociology, should those laws then be extended to them? So I guess the basis of my question is, should the Bill of Rights of the Constitution be extended to foreigners? Are the Bill of Rights not considered fundamental rights? Weren't they established as the rights that were inherent to man that that the government was supposed to leave aside? So should those not be extended to everyone, not just our society?
Joey.
Well, this is the Team America World Police. Are we allowed to impose our Bill of Rights and our moral judgments on other countries?
Well, the
No,
Bill
he's
of Rights
saying
is
the
not.
opposite.
The Bill of Rights
he's
is
saying
rights.
if somebody
it's not,
comes here.
It's not laws. It's what the government can't do to you. So the unreasonable.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we can't search and seize,
Does an immigrant enter
documents-
into the social contract by nature of them being here? is what he's
Exactly.
saying.
Do terrorists have to? Are they necessarily followed or guided by different laws because they are not part of our country? Even though we've established that these laws are fundamental human rights, and not bestowed by God, or was it bestowed by God?
Yeah.
I think they were. Yeah, God gave them to us, and the government can't do anything about it. So don't all humans have those rights?
I do.
Locke.
I do think so. I mean, I think this is the Enlightenment stuff that you were talking about. Yeah, exactly, Locke. But I
Do
mean,
you think anybody who comes into anybody who
Yeah.
enters our borders
but more
agrees
than-
upon our social
But
contract?
more than that, we have international agreements we have the Geneva Conventions, which is
Right, but
Fine. Well,
Does
then an
that-
alien comes down. Let's say that.
But the way that
but that's still, I mean,
the way that we treat terrorists is much different if they're American versus if they're foreign.
Right.
True.
So the Bill of Rights does not apply currently to someone that is not American, essentially.
right.
They don't have a right to a
Yeah,
trial.
I
They-
don't. Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. Like, and this is a good.
So you don't think somebody who? So you don't think you think?
Well,
at
here-
what point then
at
are
some-
you
at certain point, I
entering
mean,
in
this is a
social
good-
contract?
Yeah, I mean, this is like Guantanamo Bay then, and
Essentially.
and also the drones is a good
Yep.
argument here. Drones, because it's, there's no due process for anyone killed with a drone. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in some ways, that's just going straight against our Bill of Rights, and it's not applicable. I don't know.
Well, at what point does an outsider enter into our social contract? Do they have to be here a month, a year, never? Do they have to be born here?
Or does their existence?
I mean, it's a
Does
tough.
their existence in our borders in the first place, are we not obligated to agree upon the fact that they are in our social
I'm a
contract?
very.
Or I mean, even
yeah, go ahead.
even outside of our borders. So a terrorist acts against us, and
Okay.
it doesn't even have to be on our borders, and we will.
But
go
it affected
after them.
our society. and
Exactly,
thus-
and then we are subjecting them to our punishment. If we're going to bring them into our punishment system, should
Well,
that-
let's stick with them coming here first.
Okay.
I think you're right. You're absolutely correct. But just to clarify, just to make it easier to figure out.
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead.
No, I just think that I'm kind of out there with this one, and that I think we have a global society, and that we are eventually getting more and more towards that with whatever connections we have with whether it's planes, whether it's the internet, whatever. And I think that's allowed me in my mind to say that those do apply everywhere almost, and that yes, I mean, and that means that yes, as soon as you get here, you don't have, there's no waiting period or whatever like that. You should automatically be getting those rights to an extent.
Well, but what if you go to a country that their law is to cut your hand off if you've stolen something? Then by your definition, then they're being just as just in a weird way. Because
No,
You've signed up for their moral
right. You said there's a
contract when you enter
global
their
contract,
borders.
but the global contract is different, thus void across the board, and it just goes back to the fact that there is no.
you're right. I guess
Law.
their law is violating the global contract, though.
So you
How? Where is there? How is
Well,
there a global contract?
You kids might be a little bit young for this one, but when I was a kid, there was a story about
We're roughly the same age. Go ahead.
Joey's a little younger. But there was a story about a kid that had gone to Singapore and had tagged a sign.
Right,
He
yeah, I
spray
remember
painted
this.
his name on something.
God,
And
what was his name? Do
I
you
can't remember at all.
And he was whipped.
Yep, he was
He was
caned.
caned, thank you.
Yeah, so he got like 6 or 7 lashes with a cane as a punishment.
Yeah.
Something that we deem cruel and unusual, but is
No, I'm thinking about this too, because obviously I always put everything in the religious aspects. But yeah, I think about that kind of thing if you visited, a Muslim country and you got caught drinking or something like that.
Well, I mean, the
Right.
Singapore thing is outside of religion, though. I mean, he was defacing public property, so that was the law in the
But there are
social
laws there.
contract
Yeah,
that
there
he
is
entered
no
in.
global social contract. There just isn't at the moment.
You're right. At the moment, I know, and I agree. And I guess I was just trying to say that in my stupid idealistic mind, I think there should be eventually, and I think we're getting there. I know that sounds
Sure,
a
we
very,
agree with you.
The Geneva
But answer the
Convention is
question
probably the
first.
closest.
What did we
but-
do? Now, because there isn't, I mean, I agree with you. It'd be wonderful if we all could agree that,
I think-
this is immoral or this is moral, and then we can apply a correct, punishment or whatever to fit it. But there is no global social contract. So
Until the aliens invade and we have a reason to
Yeah,
have a
right.
mutual
do
enemy.
we have separate global contracts or separate social contracts at the moment?
At the moment, we do.
So at the
But we have the
moment-
United Nations. We have stuff like that. We have Geneva Convention.
Yeah,
so
but
there are
so-
certain things that we.
Sure, but at the moment, it's not across the board. So the question
Of course.
becomes,
But you're-
what are we supposed to do about the fact that if somebody comes on our borders, should they be under the same rights that every American citizen is?
Yes.
We win.
Why? I don't know that that's true. I don't know
Yeah.
if
No,
that's
I
true.
mean-
They have their own social contract. Why can't we go with theirs?
Yeah, should we punish them by their laws? If you go to somewhere unknowing of the laws, is that your fault or is that their fault?
Right. Like if they stole and they're from a country that cuts people's hands off or canes them, why
Yeah.
shouldn't we cane them?
We should cane them.
Wait, so then what you said before is not what you actually
I'm
believe?
contradicting myself all over
Right,
the place.
exactly.
I just
why
wanted
you're
to. I just wanted to say I wanted to cane them.
All right. So I don't think so. I don't know. I think that I think that there is a certain point at okay, sorry. At what point do you enter the social contract with, whatever borders that you're under?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Do you think there's...
Right, that's what I'm trying to answer.
I'm kind of curious
Right,
because you keep posing this question. I want to hear what you think.
I don't know. I'm not sure at what point you would enter the social contract. I would say almost immediately, because here's the thing. It has to do with both the crimes and the rights, right? If we deem that this is something that is a right, in other words, freedom of speech,
fundamental human right.
Well, we might claim that it's a fundamental human right, but that's just our justification, quote unquote, and that goes all the way back to John Locke, who just said that God gave it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we're right.
No, but
because our justification that isn't fair.
But
you know what I mean?
Literally written into our social contract.
No,
that
I understand.
It is a fundamental.
I understand, but that doesn't right. But I'm talking from a larger philosophical.
I've got the Constitution right over there. I can pull it
up. No, I understand what it says.
Read this?
I understand what our social
Constitution.
contract
Look
is.
it up.
What I'm saying is just that any social contract in general, once, at what point do you enter it? Whatever it might be, right? And again, that's my whole point with the whole caning thing, because we can go into that as well. Unfortunately, you've entered it. Once you're in that society, you have entered in, so you're both you both lose your rights and you gain your rights.
I think at the border crossing.
Yeah, in a weird way, I think so. Now the bigger question becomes, right, does your society have an obligation to protect you in a different once you've crossed a different border? Right. And again, it swings both ways. So if you come from a country that canes you for stealing, if you go to a different country and you steal something, and then should you be inflicted punishment on both ends? Or should you be deported back to your country and then so they can cane you, or they can come here and cane you? I certainly don't think that's the fairest way to do it. But again, I think border crossing is a fair point of the social contract. I think that's a good way to do it. I think that again, going back into whether or not the society has the correct or the most morally justified happy.
Yes.
Whether or not the society has the most morally justified social contract or not is the question that we should all strive to answer. Right? We should strive to have the most morally justified social contract possible. But at the moment, it isn't that way. So unfortunately, philosophically speaking, I'm bound by saying once you cross the border, you've entered into that social contract. To answer your question.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I would certainly agree with that. Cool. But I do also firmly believe that our Bill of Rights applies to all of humanity.
Why?
Because if we're going to establish that those are fundamental human rights that are unabridged or cannot be abridged by our government, we must establish that all humanity is equal in that. So
Got it. So you're basing on what we've determined as our social contract, and
all men are equal before
definition.
God. Yep.
Okay. So then, by that definition, again, yes, I think that you're correct. I think that our Bill of Rights applies to everybody because of the way it's written.
It is all encompassing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I don't think it ought to be, but I agree.
Really?
Well, it's not that I don't think it ought to be. I think that those are good things to have. And okay, I don't think it ought to be just because it is.
No. I
guess that's what I'm saying.
Honestly,
I know what you're saying.
I believe that is morally justified.
I think so too. I think that, but it's based on God. It says God gives it.
Yeah, that's where
where's that from?
Right. Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's not really based on God, though.
No, it is inherent.
It is. That's what John Locke essentially said, right?
It's what John Locke said,
Right,
but
but
not
that's not
necessarily what
necessarily
Thomas
the-
Jefferson
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
Yes, that's exactly what it
Those
was.
are
No.
Okay.
They were deists. They were
For the most part.
Yeah, they were not religious people. They believed that maybe a God exists, but he did not have any hand in our affairs. I think this is a big misnomer with the religious right,
sure.
and they do this all the time. Is they hijack the founding fathers. I hate that. They all say they do this, and they founded this country under Judeo-Christian values. But I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think that those are necessarily Judeo-Christian values.
I guess all I was saying.
I don't think they have it's like saying do not murder is a Judeo-Christian value. Come on, really?
Well, it is. It's right in the Ten Commandments.
Just because you think
But that existed before.
Yeah, do you think that it didn't exist before that?
No,
come on.
I think.
What about Hammurabi's code? I mean, what about all
more
of this?
importantly, I think that there's a moral justification for it, regardless of what any fucking book says.
For sure, and I think that's the point. I think that there shouldn't be this God backing of our country. I think that's what makes America separate from like every other country. And I'm going back to this again, but there's the separation of church and state, and that does make it slightly unique. Among...
Are you looking at the Constitution right now?
I am.
Okay,
yes.
nice, good, good for you. Smart.
He really did have a copy.
I believed him. I also have a fucking phone, but whatever.
Nope.
So all I was saying, to clarify, was not the fact that their justification was God. I was saying that their justification was John Locke. John Locke's justification was God.
Right.
That's all I was saying.
Okay, sure. So John Locke might have been a generation or two removed, and he's also English.
Yes.
So that's a big difference.
Also Rousseau, who was French, though.
But I mean, in Europe is slightly different religious. I mean, we have the Anglican Church and that kind of thing. So I mean,
and Rousseau, ironically enough, Rousseau's kind of like justification. Rousseau's philosophy, that's kind of what informed the French when they were kind of reestablishing their what the fuck they call it, the Constitution, I guess, their French Constitution.
French Revolution.
They used Rousseau. We used Locke.
Sure.
Sorry, but I was just clarifying what I was saying. It actually does bother me too that this country is a Christian nation, or that people claim that this country is a Christian nation.
I mean, it's made up of Christians. That's a demographic fact.
Perhaps.
You can't deny it's 80% Christians or more.
Well, but again, it goes into how you define a Christian.
The reason I walked over and grabbed my pocket Constitution is because I was curious as to whether the term God actually does exist, and I am not seeing it where I thought it was.
Well, I think you might have been thinking about the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, and that is a little
deemed
bit...
by our Creator.
Yeah.
That all men are created equal. It's not in the Constitution.
Exactly, which...
conceived in liberty.
Yeah.
And the Declaration of Independence has no legal basis.
No, whatsoever.
I mean, so
it's just a big middle finger to...
It's nice. It's flowery and beautiful, but it's
it's just a beautiful middle finger.
Lovely. I like the middle finger.
Yeah.
Do you guys know the preamble?
the
preamble to the... not the Constitution.
We the people, or
of the United States.
I don't know.
In order to form a more perfect union, duly set forth
to form this nation, conceived in liberty.
I can actually read it.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
That is all right.
So...
Well, okay, so good. So we've decided that the social contract, when someone crosses the border, we think that they probably enter the social contract. Mm-hmm. As a side note, we've mentioned the fact that our Constitution and theoretically applies to everybody because of the way it's written. I think, perhaps, maybe not.
Yeah, we'll have to double check that.
Yeah, but I think that's a fair argument. Nevertheless, the real question again is, what do we do about all this crime? See, here's the real problem. Right. We were getting into this earlier. Is there a way to form a society that would not is society? Is a criminal activity inherent in a person, or is it a product of the society?
Is there a perfect society that exists crime free? Is that?
I don't think so. No, but I'm just saying that can you start to fix society, quote unquote, fix society, right? So that does poverty cause crime? Does your upbringing cause crime? Does your situation cause crime?
Yeah, but then, I mean, look at Wall Street and all of the bankers and all of that, the white collar crime, that is certainly not a product of poverty.
Well, that's still a culture. It's a culture of greed where you're sort of, you're because of the deregulation and the fact that kind of people, the culture of greed, if you will, kind of fostered that. If you didn't have that, it's the same thing as
a culture of poverty.
Right.
You could even argue that if you were poor growing up, you might be... Nah, I guess not.
Go ahead. What?
You might be more, once you get the money, you might be a little bit more... That doesn't make sense.
Apt to be responsible with it, you mean?
Or apt to be greedy?
I don't know, actually. I was thinking about it, and I really don't know. I don't think that's actually...
What were you trying to say, though, first? Then we can decide whether you were right.
I was trying to say you were apt to be greedy, but I don't think
you were apt to be greedy.
But I don't think that's true. I don't actually thinking about it. So just forget that.
Sure. No, it's a fair question.
But it's interesting to think about, but...
That would be an interesting study. I mean, what percentage of people would actually become more altruistic coming from poverty and gaining money versus people that come from money and, maintain that money.
Or be responsible with the money, not so much altruistic.
Right.
I suppose, yeah.
Because again, like if you, there's people who win the lottery who come from absolutely nothing, who end up, again, in debt in like 5 years because they've given it all away. They weren't responsible with it.
Right. But, I mean, weren't we talking about the Wall Street greed perpetuating white-collar crime? Not necessarily whether or not they can hold on to that money or be responsible with that money.
I know.
Well, everyone knows there's a certain amount of human nature of greed and people who are going to do bad shit to other people. I think there is a small portion of that. But I think we can get rid of a lot of that with the elimination of some social poverty and other stuff like that. And eliminating some of these causes. I mean, I definitely view people as very malleable, especially when they're young. So to me, a lot of I feel like if you can make better childhoods for a lot of these kids, then you really can stop a shitload of this whatever crime that might happen or whatever we deem to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can nip it in the bud, rather.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the Freakonomics study about the abortions changing
all
the crime rates.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
But
do you want to explain what that is?
I think I have on previous shows, but or maybe that was text before calling. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So yeah, they basically did a study trying to figure out why crime rates had gone down in the late 70s and early 80s. They were basically predicting that based on the current trends, we would just devolve into this hellhole of a crimescape. Was it RoboCop was supposed to be a depiction of basically the now times, and they when we got to here, they just weren't finding that. Crime rates were going down across the board. And everyone was taking credit for it. Politicians were taking credit for it. Police were taking credit for it. And so, Freakonomics, a well-respected economist group, looked into it essentially. And basically what they found is a very strong correlation between when Roe versus Wade was passed and the
18 years.
Yeah, and about 18 years after that, there was a strong reduction in all of the crime numbers, basically indicating that unwanted children were a large portion of what was contributing to crime waves.
To clarify, this was in several different countries, I think, as well. The same thing happened in one or two other countries,
right
on. Which was the same kind of thing. It's a question of unwanted children. If an unwanted child is not there, then then society. So yes, in other words, you can possibly curtail the society.
This is kind of the Adam Carolla argument of parenting. Better parents in general will lead to this, reduction in crime. But I guess the question is, how does the government do something about that, or how does we as society kind of foster that? Is there some way to make better parents? I mean, obviously we did Roe v. Wade. That's some of that, but
yeah, I mean, getting rid of a lot of those restrictions on, forcing people to have kids. But also as a society, we need to figure out a way to make having kids not so burdensome. I mean, this is, one of the worst points in history as far as the amount of effort it takes to raise children. In the past, my grandparents had 12 children. I can't even imagine trying to, I mean, how is that even financially possible? My grandfather was an electrician and my grandmother was basically a stay-at-home mother.
Right.
How is one working person today supposed to raise 12 kids?
Let's just cut right to it. Let's just cut right to this. Is it money? Is it money? I mean, there's the whole 1% point, right? And there's people who have fucking everything.
Well, and that's the thing is our greed and poverty necessities for a capitalist society. Is that possibly part of what drives capitalism? So I mean, poverty being the stick and greed being the carrot that is going to be moving things forward. Is that necessary? Without it, is that just communism or socialism?
The wording of your question is weird. I mean, because the answer is yes, but I'm not sure that's.
Well, I'm saying
what you mean ultimately.
Okay, so I guess a better question is, what is a society without that extreme greed and without that poverty?
Well, no. You can presuppose the fact that greed and poverty are not necessarily they're not mutually exclusive. So greed exists, and poverty might exist.
Right, but are they necessary for capitalism?
What do you mean? Are they necessary? No, I don't think they're necessary for capitalism. I think greed. Necessary is a weird word, right? What's necessary for capitalism is just free market. So I don't know if greed and poverty.
There's a better way to rephrase it. Maybe winners and losers in a capitalist society.
But again, I don't think the point is. I don't think I don't think any kind of true hardcore capitalist is going to simply say that
it's a zero-sum game.
Right. I don't think that anybody's going to say that.
Probably you're right.
Yeah, I think that ideally in capitalist society, everybody's like, well, everybody's a winner, right? I think so. or no?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
You think that, but you think people are happy with the fact that there are fucking losers and people that are poverty, or you think that they're just saying, well, that's the byproduct of the way that we do it. If you work hard, you can get out of it.
Exactly.
But they're saying you can work hard to get out of it.
On a disgusting fundamental level, that's the same reason that car companies keep putting ads on television. It's not that they're trying to get you to buy another car. It's trying to get you to be comfortable with the car that you've already purchased.
Sure, but I don't think anybody wants them to be without a job.
No.
I think they're just saying that you are without a job, and the way to get out of that is to work. But they're just sort of turning a blind eye in the capitalist society. So it's not that they want.
No, I don't think anyone wants it. I think it's a natural byproduct of capitalism.
Yes.
There are going to be winners and losers.
There you go. That's the better way to put it.
Part of the reason that we don't put forth the effort to abolish it is because it is that deterrent again. It is that reason that you want to work hard. Mm-hmm. If we did get rid of complete poverty, then we become that sort of we fall into that Russian problem of, just show up and you get your bread or whatever.
That goes back into our economic discussion.
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
Without incentive, is there any reason to continue?
Right.
So, I mean, is poverty fundamental to capitalism?
But the way we answered that was that it's a mix. It's a mix. I mean, poverty and greed are certainly byproducts of it. It's not necessarily that it's fundamental or not, but they're definitely byproducts by the philosophical standpoint of the way that you've decided to govern.
And then should both be illegal.
And they should both be illegal?
Should both be illegal.
Should what? Capitalism?
No. Both is
greed and poverty.
Yeah, both are essentially illegal. It's not necessarily legal to be homeless. It's not necessarily legal to be greedy to the extent of committing these white collar crimes.
I don't think it's illegal to be homeless.
In some places, yeah. California is a sanctuary state, but most other states are.
It is illegal to be homeless. Oh, because it's soliciting, I guess.
No, vagrancy laws in Chicago. If technically, if you don't have a certain amount of money in your pocket, you are a vagrant, and you can be locked up for that. I've known some people that just happen to be drunk on the street that have gotten picked up for that. But,
really?
Yeah. That's.
Cool.
Yeah, it is technically, it's not legal.
There are places where it's illegal to be homeless.
Well, it's not legal to sleep in a park after dark, but where
that's a loitering law though, right?
Right, but then where is it legal? There's nowhere for them to legally be.
Where they're going to sleep.
There is,
No, I understand. I'm still just saying, it's a loophole. But it's not. But the law in and of itself.
No, there is no law that says it's illegal to be homeless. But there are.
Well, no, you said there's a vagrancy law.
Right. But that is different. There are a series of laws that put together basically make it illegal to be homeless.
Right. Okay.
They're
sure.
kind of same with greed. There is not a law that says you can't be greedy, but there are a bunch of laws out there that keep you from being too greedy, essentially.
Well, no, it's just like theft. I mean, I think you're allowed to be as greedy as you fucking want to be. There's nothing stopping.
No, I mean monopoly laws. There's a point where the government is going to shut us down.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Antitrust laws. Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we deem a spectrum in there,
sure.
and there is an outside of on both ranges.
Sure. Well, but again, the question is, how do you stop crime? I mean, we can talk about the morality of communism versus capitalism, but the question is, okay, is creating a less intensely let's just say
the economic
divide.
Argument then is, if we just give everyone enough money, would there not be crime?
Right. Exactly.
If we get rid of poverty, can we eliminate crime?
That's what I was trying to go for. Yeah.
We can definitely criticize bad policies that have to do with the economics of it. For instance, punishing the poor with extra fines or whatever like that. That clearly that's creating more poverty and creating more crime and creating a feedback loop, rather. So I think we can definitely recognize that as part of the problem and stop the obvious stuff that I kind of got back to earlier that I should have started talking about now, about like mandatory sentencing and minimum sentencing and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's clearly something we could eliminate.
Why are we starting from that direction and not from the top? Why aren't we taxing more? Taxing the rich more?
Why aren't we going after white-collar criminals? Who said I don't want to do that?
I didn't. I'm saying you started from the point of like stopping the poverty from
That's
getting
true.
worse. I'm saying,
I guess you're right.
From the top part. I mean, why do you have to worry about the bottom part?
Well, I guess people are always media is sensationalized that part rather than the white collar crime, even though they surely should. And
right, exactly. I think it's a fair point.
I mean, they shouldn't, but that's just the way it's portrayed, I think, in our society, which is, again, a shame. But I mean, but there was a chance. I mean, I think this goes back to the economic stuff with I think Iceland and those Scandinavian countries. They prosecuted
Same difference.
their bankers, right? And we let them go. So
did you guys see the movie?
Inside Job?
Big Short?
So
Big
many
Short.
times.
Big Short.
I've seen them all.
Oh yeah, Inside Job was much
Documentary.
Yeah, that was older though. The
Big Short just came out.
Yeah,
I fucking love Big Short.
yeah.
It's funny too because it's I watched Inside Job so many times, and I watched fucking Too Big to Fail so many times.
Which one was Inside Job? That I keep thinking of Loose Change, which is more of the.
Oh yeah, and there's Capitalism: A Love Story too.
yeah, I forgot about that.
But I've seen all of them. Yeah, no, not Loose Change. Loose Change is the fucking 9/11
Yes,
one, right?
sir. Getting into my conspiracy
we
realm.
need to have a conspiracy theory episode. We will. In any event, Inside Job was about the internal
Was that
workings of the
Enron?
financial crisis. No.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Enron, the smartest guys
Oh,
in the room.
gotcha. Yeah.
It won the Academy Award. Inside Job. I think it was
yeah.
2010.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 11. I don't know. Oh shit, that's a long fucking time ago.
Yeah.
No way. Maybe it's 12.
No.
In any event.
Either way.
And I can't even remember who did it either. Shit, man. But Inside Job is probably the best and most comprehensive look at the financial crisis itself. Inside Job is fucking amazing. And then there's Too Big to Fail, which is the HBO dramatization of the financial crisis, which is also just as interesting, but it's like a dramatization of it rather than sort of the heart and the nitty gritty and the actual fucking people of Inside Job. And it's funny, I had seen both of them so many times, and Capitalism: Love Story, I think I saw once or twice. So I had a really good working of the financial. I've always have. Well, you know why? This is a good way to put it. This will be a fun story. For some reason, so when I was in high school, I did this weird kind of stocks class, I guess, or maybe it was a business class, and one of the jobs was we had to kind of watch stocks at the time, and interest rates and all that shit. And so I kind of got into watching CNBC a little bit, just finding the stocks. We did these fake stocks things, you pick your stock and it was whatever. And throughout the years, occasionally throughout college, I would just go on randomly and watch CNBC. It was kind of cool. I'm like, this is kind of interesting. Just to watch it. I don't know why. I never played. I never really cared. It was just kind of an interesting thing. And I had this weird feeling. It was 4 or 5 in the morning. I was up early, and I hadn't done this for a long time. And I'm like, well, let me just, what's going on? Nothing's on. I was in my apartment. I turned on CNBC, and everything was fine. It was like a normal day, and then it just went down and down. And then the Lehman Brothers announced what was happening, and down and down, and I'm fucking transfixed. And my roommates came in, they're like, "Why are you watching CNBC?" I'm like, "I was."
The world is crumbling.
Sit down and watch. And they're like, "Dude, this is fucking boring." And then an hour and a half later, they're like, "Holy shit, what the fuck's going on, man?"
Yeah.
So literally, so since that moment, I've been absolutely fascinated with the financial crisis because it was I was literally there watching the whole thing happen. It was unbelievable. So to bring it back, the Big Short recently, when I saw that, I was like, I'm with it. I've fucking seen all those other movies so many times, so I recommend seeing it.
So I have a question. Wait, would The Big Short be the best one for the layman to see so it can...
explain
watch Inside
explain
Job?
what? That's the problem. Explain what? See, it's so fucking complicated.
Yeah.
It really is insanely complicated.
Okay.
There's no real way to condense everything.
Yeah, they all explain little portions of it.
You know what? The best part was, I think one of the first ones I saw. Actually, I think the first one I saw might have been Capitalism: A Love Story.
Okay.
And there's this little part where Michael Moore goes to this one guy. He's like, "What the fuck happened?" Which of course is the question, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck happened? And this guy goes, "You ever see a dam fail? You pull the one brick out and there's just the little thing. It's whatever." And I'm like, fuck you. I fucking understand that. I want to know what happened. I don't want a fucking metaphor for what happened. Tell me, actually break it down for me, because that's the only fucking way to fix this bullshit. So I hated it. But anyway, so to answer your question the layman way, sure, start with Capitalism: A Love Story.
But basically that
And
guy
then-
with the dam analogy, he didn't even know either?
He knew, but it's my point is that it's so complicated. It's
Yeah.
hard to condense it. So to start with one, sure, watch Capitalism: Love Story, then watch fucking Too Big to Fail, then watch Inside Job, then watch The Big Short.
Fair enough.
And you'll have a pretty good. And you know what? Just read all the fucking books that they were based off of too.
No, I'm not going to read a damn thing. But
You don't have to.
getting back to the crime and punishment of it, though, even though we're not going to do a goddamn thing about that, how should we be punishing those people? So they inflicted trillions of dollars, worth of damage on society. Is there any suitable way that they can repay their societal debt? Is there anything that we could do to them that would be sufficient to make up for what they did?
Go ahead, Joey.
What's Bernie Madoff got? What's his sentence?
I don't know.
He's got 50 years in
Something
jail.
like
right?
that,
So
yeah.
he's basically in jail for the rest of his life, right?
Yeah, but again, the white collar jail is a much different jail than.
But it's the biggest problem is it's systemic. It's systemic. I mean, like in a weird way, they weren't doing anything wrong.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
In a weird
it's
way,
it's a corrupt system.
In a weird way, the kid selling crack in the ghetto isn't doing anything wrong. He's just running a business. I mean, there's
right.
That's not to say.
Why can't we fix the system then?
Okay, but shouldn't we punish the people that are?
The ones that they came up with the system.
Huh?
Did they come up with the system?
Yeah, they're
the ones who kind of like positioned to get the right people in power and
Yeah.
and lobbied to do that.
They found the holes in the system. Essentially, they exploited
and created the holes.
Yeah,
too.
and they exploited the defaults in the system.
Right.
So, I mean, aren't they just as much responsible then? They're the ones that essentially created the system that they are allowed to then go ahead and manipulate.
To be honest with you, I guess it'd be great to prosecute them all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned with fixing the system first. I really am. I whether it's deterred or not, I don't really care
It
personally.
seems like it's more of a witch hunt than solving
It
the
really
problem.
is. I mean, where are you going to start? I mean, so you're going to prosecute the thousands upon thousands of fucking some of the mathematical geniuses of the world. Just
but I think
because
that's the whole point. There's
the
always going to be
system's wrong?
holes in the system because technology changes way faster than government or legislation can keep up with it. So there are always going to be ways to exploit whatever the system was.
Right, but then does putting everyone in jail fix that?
Putting someone in jail would help. It would it would deter people. Again, this whole we have this whole system of deterrent and punishment. And if we're going to punish someone selling crack, we should certainly punish someone that did trillions of dollars worth of damage to our
obviously.
society.
Again, I'm suggesting you go both ways, right? And I'm also suggesting perhaps you shouldn't even put the kid selling crack on the corner in prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think you should fucking flog and publicly shame every fucking Wall Street trader who did it. But in a weird way, like I don't think either. I think that both systems are wrong. And sure, at the moment, we can really look at what the right thing to do and the form of punishment is.
Was public shaming a good system? Was the stockades a good way to go?
No, it wasn't.
Really?
It wasn't a moral way to go. I don't think it's a just way to go.
We use the internet.
Yeah, I mean, very true, and that's the court of public opinion.
Yeah,
is that moral?
That's the thing that gives me hope, actually.
Really?
Yeah, in a weird way. The fact that everything sort of is all open and that we can all sort of we can in a weird there becomes this sort of group morality that scares the shit out of you. I know, but but I think everybody at their core has for the most part a similar outlook on the world.
My issue with internet morality is the troll syndrome. So the idea essentially is that people that are happy are not as likely to comment as people that are unhappy.
Right.
So you become you have this self-fulfilling sort of cycle of demonizing things that are not necessarily immoral or unjustifiable, however we want to define that. But then they are, submitted to this court of public opinion, which is made up essentially of the people
Trolls.
that, have the lowest. It's almost the same problem that we have with our democratic system.
I think that'll go away over time, though. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just too optimistic.
Yeah, look at the way. Look at voting.
You're
It's
right.
the people that show the reason that we have these two political parties that are completely extremist and our primary system is completely ridiculous is because they have to appeal to their ridiculous bases.
Right.
They are appealing to the vocal minority on each side rather than the actual, the silent majority, if you want to refer to it.
Right.
It's a little Nixonian, but anyways, it's the lowest common denominator essentially, just to rile the base to something that is, going to make headlines.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I just don't know.
When the politicians keep politicking, before you turn to excessive drinking, spend some time collectively simply politinkering with the show where I don't know, man. 'Cause the truth is, I don't know, man.
I love this song so much.
I don't know, man. I don't know,
Lock them all away.